Welcome in, hockey fans. We got some breaking news on the Hockey Talk Show today. We are one step closer to a Rick Nash trade and a Ranger rebuild. On this episode of the Hockey Talk Show, we are going to break it all down. What's happening? What's going on? Where is he at? Where are the Rangers at? Why is this happening today? And where is he going to wind up? We'll cover that all and more on this episode of the Hockey Talk Show. Yes. Welcome into this episode of the Hockey Talk Show. Breaking news. Rick Nash one step closer to being traded. We've got it all right here for you on this episode of the Hockey Talk Show. Plus, what are we looking at trade deadline-wise for the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Carolina Hurricanes, and more? These are the top buzzworthy stories here on the Hockey Talk Show. We're going to cover it for you right now on this episode. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, hit that like button. Share this around on Facebook and Twitter. Let everybody know you're watching the Hockey Talk Show. That's where you're getting your news and your Hockey Talk Show conversation. That's the most important. This is a hockey community, and that's what we're here to talk about. So if you're on Facebook and YouTube, let me know that you're watching in the comments below, and we will definitely cover every aspect of this. Now, Rick Nash has not been traded. He is one step closer to being traded. The New York Rangers and the Rick Nash trade, that's what we're talking about right here. That's what we're talking about. Careful as you read that headline. The Rick Nash trade, not Rick Nash has been traded. If you're streaming this on the podcast, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, or Stitcher, make sure you rate and review and let everybody know this is where you're getting your hockey conversation from. We are going to break this down, but essentially what we're talking about on this episode is the New York Rangers have approached Rick Nash, and they have formally asked for his no trade list. Rick is on a modified no movement clause, which means that he can submit a list of teams that he cannot be moved to, a list of teams that he can veto a trade to. And of course, there's going to be a list of teams that he cannot. The Rangers asking for this on February 5th, a Monday, just a mere 21 days before the trade deadline, following the story that we discussed on the Hockey Talk Show of the fact that it was decided in the front office and in the owner's box that this team just doesn't have it, and they are going to break it down, and they're going to let Jeff Gorton give the good old college try and see what he can build, is a surefire signal that the New York Rangers are out of it as far as the 2017-2018 season goes, and they are officially going into their rebuild mode. That is it. You cannot convince me of otherwise. Even if Rick Nash doesn't get moved, which I think by all accounts he will, and I will give you all the reasons why. And welcome in Wold Wolf and Austin and Eddie. Welcome into the show, man. On Facebook, let me know if you're watching. Give the thumbs up and let me know where you're watching from and what you want to talk about. Although I must admit the main focus of this episode is going to be on A, the New York Rangers, B, the Carolina Hurricanes, and C, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And not necessarily in that order, but we'll spend a lot of time on the New York Rangers because, again, this is the big signal. This is a signal to the rest of the league and the hockey world. Rangers are going into the rebuild. Rangers are going into the rebuild. That is it. Again, we talked about this on the show before. We are in a mindset with this team where if they're not going to be good enough to compete and go deep in the East, what's the point of rolling the dice and trying to figure out if you got something here? There is no point. Let Jeff Gorton get his chance to build a team. This was Glenn Sather's team that was scrapped and band-aided together. Let's let Jeff Gorton get a try and give him a shot and see what he could come up with. He already did really well with the Mika Zibanejad trade. Let's all be honest with each other. Hell, we're not here to lie to one another, right? Let's all be honest. He did great with the Mika Zibanejad trade. Let's see what else he can do. I thought he did a phenomenal job with that Mika Zibanejad trade, in fact. Remember to hit the thumbs up on this on YouTube and Facebook. We want to make sure we're spreading the word that we're talking hockey, not necessarily breaking the hockey news, but talking about it and talking about it ad nauseum. I'm going to break this bad boy down all the way around, man. All the way around. As far as the Carolina Hurricanes go, let's talk about that quickly here. The Carolina Hurricanes, Bill Peters had some interesting comments after the Canes lost to the San Jose Sharks. Was that yesterday? God, that Super Bowl took a lot out of me, didn't it? Did it take a lot out of you? Took a lot out of my bank account, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not too happy about that. But anyway, let's get into this before we dive fully into the New York Rangers and their situation. Bill Peters, not so much pleasant words for the Carolina Hurricanes and the Carolina Hurricanes fans. Can't take a lot of solace in this one. Canes lose a big one to the San Jose Sharks. 3-1 on Sunday. Have not done all that great in their last 10. They have faded in the standings. It seems like every time they take a step forward, they do take a step and a half back. 4-6 in their last 10. Following the game, I actually have audio of this, but I'm just going to reiterate it to you. I think I can say it better, actually, than the coach can. Peter said that there are 3 players who were healthy scratches on Sunday. Philip DiGiuseppe, Josh Juris, and Klaas Dahlbeck, that they are options to play Tuesday when the Canes take the ice against the Flyers. Peter said, and I quote, "The answer's not in putting the lines, changing guys around. When the Titanic went down, they reorganized the deck chairs. It still sunk. It did. So it's not the deck chairs. There's more to give. There's more. We'll get more. It will be good Tuesday. It will be a fun game." He said, "I'm not happy. Quote, I'm very disappointed in some of the guys you count on. Very disappointed. This lineup has been together a little bit here. Maybe there's some complacency there. The lineup will be different Tuesday. You can put that group. You can't put that group out there again after that." So Bill Peters is letting everybody know he is unhappy with his current lineup and that there will be changes come Tuesday. Not a great thing. It could be a great thing, but it's not a great thing right now. You don't want your lineup faltering. The good news for the Carolina Hurricanes, which is also good news for the New York Islanders, which is also good news for the Philadelphia Flyers, which is also not good news for the Philadelphia Flyers, which is also not good news for the New York Islanders, is that all these teams stink. All of them. Let's take the Rangers out of it, which I believe they are. Carolina 4-6 in their last 10. The Islanders 5-4-1. Philadelphia 5-4-1. Columbus 4-5-1. These teams are barely 500. The 4 teams fighting their way into a playoff spot, and they're acting like they have 11-point leads in the division. That's literally how they're acting. None of them are playing like they're on the bubble trying to win a spot in the playoffs for this season. Not one of those teams. That's the good news for the 4 teams. The good news for the 4 teams is also the bad news, which is all 4 teams stink right now. Wold Wolf, I'm scared for the Canes right now. I hope we don't blow this chance to the playoffs. I think the Canes need to make a move. I think they're going to take a long, hard look at Hoffman. The problem is, from what I understand, Hoffman has a limited no trade or a no trade. He has some sort of a no trade, and I think he can veto something if he wants. So if he doesn't want to scurry on down to the triangle, he doesn't have to. He does have a no trade. Yeah, he does have a no trade. I'm not sure. Let me see here. He's got a modified no trade. He has to list 10 teams that he cannot be traded to. So if Carolina is on that list, they're out of luck. They can still go after Kane. And now we know that they can go after Rick Nash, but I don't know if they're going to want to go after Rick Nash. I don't know if Rick Nash can necessarily help this lineup with the Carolina Hurricanes. We'll have to wait and see. Interesting hockey talk show. Bill Peters not happy with his lineup down there in Carolina. Says there is definitely going to be some changes. Says you can't put the same group out as you did in the 3-1 loss to the San Jose Sharks, and he's looking for effort. He liked Aho's game, he said, and I think he said Brock McGinn, who had a fight in the game, did a good job in giving some effort. But everybody else, he called out Derek Ryan's line with Skinner and Lindholm on it. Teuvo Teravainen, Jordan Stahl played with Aho. He didn't mention those players. He didn't mention Rask. He didn't mention Williams, Stepniak, Kruger, or Nordstrom. He didn't mention his defense. And, of course, the Hurricanes continue to struggle in net as Scott Darling is just not the player that they wanted when they offered him $4 million a year to come here. And they've had to put Cam Ward back in, and he's been just okay, as has been Scott Darling. Woldwolf, I want Pacioretty. I think everybody wants Max Pacioretty, buddy. I think everybody wants Max Pacioretty. Austin, that would be great for the Canes. I wholeheartedly agree. I think a big goal scorer like Pacioretty would be great to come in here for the Canes. But who gets knocked down a line? Brock McGinn? You going to send him down to the third line? It's a sick third line, actually. Skinner and Ryan and McGinn. It's tough. I can see that. I can honestly see the Carolina Hurricanes sitting still and trying to get something more out of this roster because you have the guys, right? All these guys are supposed to be capable. Aho, Teravainen, Williams. These are scorers. Jeff Skinner should not be on the third line. And if he is, your three lines should be producing a hell of a lot. And they're not. And they're not right now. And that's a problem. Eddie still thinks the Leafs are going to shrivel up. I don't think so. I think they're going to be just fine. Austin, I have heard rumors of the Rangers and Lightning have had mutual interest in making a trade that contains Ryan McDonough. I don't see that happening. I don't think the Lightning need to get anything, let alone Ryan McDonough. That seems like too much to me. Too much of a good thing. I can't see that happening, honestly. I really can't see that I can't see that happening whatsoever. Whoops. Sorry. We're still on the air. Can everybody still hear me? Angela, what team do you think Rick Nash will go to? I have an answer to that question. I have an answer, and we have an expert's answer. Let's get into Rick Nash. Where do we think Rick Nash is going to go? This is the big story today. Rick Nash submits a no-trade list. This broke just about 2 hours ago, and we're going to give you all the details as we know it. And we finally have some reaction from Rick Nash that he gave to Dan Rosen just about 2 hours ago, a little bit more than 2 hours ago. Rangers asked for his list of teams that he could be traded to without his permission. It is the first formal step required per the terms of his contract for the Rangers to trade him before the trade deadline, which is coming up February 26th at 3 p.m. Nash, who's a restricted free agent come July 1st, gave the Rangers a list of 18 teams he could block a trade to. That leaves 12 teams that Nash can be traded to, unless he waives the no-trade clause in his contract. So what that means is, even if he submits a list of 18 teams that he can block a trade to. If they decide to trade him to one of those teams, he can still go. He's just got to give his okay. This is a little heartbreaking. Dan Rosen caught up with Rick Nash, who said, quote, "My number one goal is to win a Stanley Cup with the Rangers, and I've had have a successful season with the New York Rangers. It's unfortunate, but it's the business side of it, when you're asked to make a list, you think the teams you think of the teams that have the best chance to win the Stanley Cup. What I find interesting about that is he's going along with the process. That's an admission of going along with the process. If you want to, stick a cog in the wheel here and put the Rangers in a quagmire, you submit a list of teams that you can't be traded to that consist of all Stanley Cup playoff contenders, right? That's what you do. If you don't want to be moved, in other words, I mean, this is more like in a Dion Phaneuf situation where you can flat out say no. But if you don't want to be moved, you pick the 10 teams, the 12 teams that are the worst. They're not going to trade you to a bad team. Not going to get anything back for that. A team not going to the playoffs is they're not going to give away a pick for Rick Nash. Doesn't make any sense. He's got to go to a contender, right? So, you can gunk up the works that way if you want, but clearly what Rick Nash is saying here is, I'm submitting on my list of teams who I think is going to win a Stanley Cup. And good for him. He's had a great storied career, right? Really long. I don't think he's done by any means. I just think his game has changed. I think he's going to become a third-line player. I think he needs to work on his game a little bit. I think he needs to work on his skating a little bit. He's a former shell of himself and where he used to be at. I think there's a lot of work to be done with Rick Nash. I think he can be good. I think he could be a 15, 20 goal scorer still. The problem is he can't take up first line 30 goal scorer minutes, and he can't take up first line 30 goal scorer money. Just can't happen. Nash went on to say, quote, "I have no idea how I'm going to explain this to my son that he can't cheer for the Rangers." And doesn't that break your heart? That breaks my heart. That definitely went through my head, he said. Every time he sees a goal, he starts singing the song. It's tough, but it's reality. It's the business side of it. And when you go through certain things of where you could end up, you think about your family and your kids in the best situation to win. It's tough. Elaine Vigneault chimed in saying, quote, coaches' job are to coach the players that they have available, and players' job is to play. And Rick is a pro, and he's going to play. I'm not concerned about that at all. We've got to find a way as a team and individually to be a little bit better. When asked about, will this affect his psyche? Look, we've kind of seen this, right? The last two games of the Rangers, ever since that article came out where they were talking about rebuilding the Rangers, we talked about it on this show. Go back a couple episodes if you missed it. On the podcast, on YouTube, on Facebook. We talked about the Rangers rebuild. Ever since then, the Rangers have not had life to their game. It was only a few days ago. It wasn't that long ago. But ever since then, the Rangers had not had any life to their game. This affects teams. And now that this is out there, and now that you've asked Rick Nash to, give his list of teams that he wants to be traded to, it's time to start trading. There's no reason to keep this team in limbo and make them suffer. There's just no reason. This isn't a spark move, by the way. This isn't maybe they'll stuff will get out and they'll start playing really good and they'll go on a tear. It's not how you get a spark. It's not how you get a spark going. Angelo, I think they should start with the front office. Well, Angelo, I don't think you're wrong, but let me play devil's advocate with you here for a second. Actually, maybe I think you're a little wrong. Let me play devil's advocate here with you a second. Jeff Gordon's only been the general manager for a short amount of time, right? Glenn Sather put this team together, and they've been patching it together since the transition of Sather to Jeff Gordon, right? The move that Jeff Gordon had so far was bringing in Mika Zibanejad, which I think everybody would agree was a pretty killer move. He's outstanding. He's way better than Derek Brassard. Way better. And he's produced very well here with the Rangers. It's a shame he hasn't had anybody to pass to or get a pass from. Think about how good he'll be then. But I think that Jeff Gordon, honestly, needs a chance to build the team that he wants to build. You just got to a point where your manager got too old and wanted to step aside, and it was time. And they did that right. They handled that all really well. But now they're at the point where maybe Jeff Gordon, rightfully so, doesn't want to keep sticking a Band-Aid on this. Maybe he wants to start from scratch and win. Problem is, in your net, what do you do with Lundqvist then? Because can you waste the next 4 years, 5 years of his contract? How's Henrik Lundqvist feel playing behind a bunch of young kids trying to figure it out? Is he going to want to do that? I don't know. You have to ask him how he feels. Does he want to win now? Does he want to win in a year? Because most rebuilds take 3 to 5 years. So I don't know if you want to eat up that much of his contract. Again, this goes back to when the Hockey Talk Show first started. And I said, maybe even the first controversial statement I ever said, which was the Rangers, if it doesn't go well, need to move Henrik Lundqvist. Now, I don't think Lundqvist goes before the trade deadline. I have to keep saying that. I think he goes in the offseason. The contract's too big to move at any other time. Austin, how long do you think it would take the Rangers if they traded all their good players to be a good team again? 3 to 5 years. Yeah, 3 to 5 years. It's just how long it takes. You need at least 2 or 3 drafts. And then every player needs 2 to 3 years till you really see what you have. 5 for defensemen most of the time. Think about how long it took Victor Hedman to come around. He's dominating now. He was drafted 9 years ago. It didn't take him 9 years to be good. He was good 3, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, but it took a little while for him to get there. Defensemen usually take a little longer. Defensemen usually take a bit longer. Where do I think he's going to go? Well, let's take a look at Dan Rosen because he's weighed in on this. He has an opinion. He's a great writer. I respect him. Let's see what he thinks. Top 3 likely contenders that I think need a versatile top 6 forward, like Rick Nash used to be. Oh, I added the used to be part. Sorry. I know he meant to say that, but Twitter has its character restrictions. An ideal fit: Dallas Stars, Nashville Predators, San Jose Sharks. If you want to go with 4, include St. Louis Blues. Now, it's not difficult to build this list. These are all the teams that are going to the playoffs. These are all the teams that could use some forward help. Why I don't love Dallas or Nashville. I shouldn't say that. Why I don't love Dallas and San Jose is Rick Nash is pretty slow. He's big, but he's slow. And I don't know if the Dallas Stars need more slow, big players. I know the San Jose Sharks definitely don't need more big, slow players. Predators, I think, could get away with it, although I'm a little scared if Mike Fisher comes back into the mix. He's obviously slowed. But the Predators have a bunch of fast skaters in their lineup that I think they could figure it out in Nashville. I don't think he drags them down too much in Nashville. St. Louis, they got a good amount of speed. That might be able to work. But, the thing with the Preds, and again, same thing with the Canes, and it's definitely the same thing with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Who's out? Who's out? If you're the Preds, who's out? Kyle Turris, can't do that. Victor Arvidsson, that's not happening. Craig Smith's had a good year, no? Nick Bonino's a great third-line center. Does Nick Bonino get all he can get out of Rick Nash on his line? I don't know. I think Mike Fisher, to go along with what Eddie's saying in there, that's basically their trade deadline acquisition. I think that they could use a surefire thing like an Evander Kane. I think Max Pacioretty would be amazing in Nashville. I think Max Pacioretty to the Nashville Predators almost guarantees a return to the Stanley Cup final. I think it would definitely be Nashville and Vegas fighting it out for whoever's going to come out of the West. I think definitely. Pacioretty would be amazing with that. And I think that Nashville should focus on that. Let's be honest with each other. Rick Nash is a shell of where he was. And so the team that picks him up, I believe, will have already exhausted their possibilities of acquiring an Evander Kane or Max Pacioretty or Mike Hoffman. Now, those 3 that I just named are the top 3 forwards that you can acquire, that would be great. Right after that is Thomas Vanek. And I think you can argue all day long about Vanek is better than Nash. He is. Potentially, Nash could be a lot better. Vanek, I think, is having a better year. With sight unseen, without really looking at their stats, I believe Vanek's got the better numbers. Because Rick Nash has had an abysmal year. I mean, an abysmal year. Abysmal year. But you're going to look at those top 3 forwards first before you're going to look at Rick Nash. Now, what do I think that the Rangers can get for Nash? As I've stated on this show before, now here's where I'm going to tell you, here's the beauty of your old pal Ant. I'm not afraid to admit there's a change of time. Not that I'm admitting I'm wrong, but markets change. And when you're talking about trades, it's a market, right? 2 days ago, the stock market in the U.S., thumbs up. Today, it takes a 1,500 point dip and everything is wrong with the world, right? Things change. Brokers one day will be telling you, buy, buy, buy. And then the next day they're telling you, we're starting a slowdown here. Wait till it's over and then buy. Things change on an hourly basis. Same goes for the National Hockey League. Same goes when you're talking about a trade market. It's a market like any other. I still think that Rick Nash cannot yield a first-round draft pick. I just don't. The problem with that statement is, first of all, he shouldn't. Second of all, the problem with that statement is the market hasn't been set yet. The only real great deal there's been so far this year is the Matt Duchene trade. Now, there was an Anthony Duclair deal as well, but, it's a different scenario altogether. When we're talking about established players, not potentially great players, right? So there really hasn't been a lot on the trade market, and values have not been set. Usually there's a deal that takes place right around now that sets the tone for the rest of the year. Also, now prices are high, right? So do I think that Rick Nash can go for a first? I think if he goes early. I think if the Rangers can pull off a deal within the next 3 or 4 days, somebody might be desperate enough to say, that's my guy. I'm going to overpay to get him. If they can, I think he goes for a second-round draft pick. I just can't see somebody giving up a first-round draft pick for Rick Nash with the stats that he's had this year and the type of game. By the way, I mean, sometimes stats can lie. I don't think the stats lie in the case of the New York Rangers. I don't think the stats lie in the case of Rick Nash. He's not great. You watch him and he's not great. It's not a good year. It's plain to see he's slowed down. 15 goals, 10 assists in 25 games. He's a -5. So he's on pace for roughly 20 goals. Like I said, he could be a 20-goal scorer. Maybe 22 goals, 23 goals, something like that. Eddie, the Rangers might find a team to make a panic decision. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Do I think he goes for a #1 pick? No. Do I think it's possible? There is a slim possibility that I can't sit here and say 100% he doesn't go for a #1 pick. I just don't think so. I think Evander Kane can go for a #1 pick. I just don't see Rick Nash going for a #1 pick. And that's where it gets weird. If Rick Nash goes for a #1 pick, then how much is Max Pacioretty going to cost? His cost is going to go through the roof. But if Pacioretty gets traded first, if Pacioretty goes for a first, a prospect, and a player now, everybody would say if you can get a second and a prospect or a second and a player now or whatever for Nash, that's great. Because he's literally half the player that Max Pacioretty is, right? I mean, Pacioretty's a younger kid. He's still got a lot of game in him. Nash is 33 and clearly at the end of his playing ability. I don't know if Rick Nash has another 6 years in the league. Then again, you look at Eric Stahl, and he's out there dominating in Minnesota after everybody thought, including the New York Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes, that he was done. I don't know, but I know this. I know that the Rangers are going to start making moves, and the Rangers, Rick Nash is only one part of this. Rick Nash is only one part of this. Like I said, Matt Zuccarello is going to go. You can definitely bring in something halfway decent for, what's his name? Michael Grabner. You've got Matt Zuccarello. Did I say Matt Zuccarello again already? I think I just did. Zuccarello, Grabner, the McDonough possibility. Again, because you can build around Shattenkirk. The Lundqvist possibility, although again, I think that's an offseason move. And as I've been saying, Hayes, Fost, Miller, VC. These are 4 of the exact same type of player, and you don't need that many potentially 25 goal scorers who are only scoring 10 goals for you. You just don't need that. You just don't need that in their lineup. You just don't. So this is the interesting thing. Rick Nash, where does he go and what does he go for? I honestly think that I don't think that the Preds would take him. I think Dallas is interesting, although, again, I worry about the speed there. And I think San Jose is going to look to acquire somebody. It's just who's going to be desperate, Who's going to be desperate for it? Now, although they're desperate for a center, I don't think that you can rule out the Pittsburgh Penguins because I think they're going to be buyers, especially at the deadline. I think they like to pick up that final piece. I think Rick Nash's depth. Let's be honest. Any team that picks up Nash, the Rangers are going to pick up half his contract. That's going to happen. That's the other part of this that adds a little bit of value to Rick Nash is if the Rangers agree to pick up half his pay, that could provide a little bit more value to somebody. You know what I mean? That could be a little bit more valuable. That gets them up there in price instead of, down on the 2 or 3 draft pick ends. But if you can pick up a second and a third for Nash, I think that's a win. I think that's a big win. I don't think Toronto needs him. St. Louis is kind of interesting to me. But again, I think outside of today's news and the splashy headlines, I think that, once things settle down in a couple of days, I think that Rick Nash will take a while to go. Because teams are going to be, trying to figure out if they can get Evander Kane or if they can get Mike Hoffman or if they can get Max Pacioretty. Those phone calls need to be made. I know the prices are high on those players. So another possibility is they say, well, to hell with it. I'm not going to wait for the price to come down on Evander Kane. I'll just go out and get Rick Nash right now for a second. And I'm just going to move on with my team. Give him a little bit more time to get over to my squad and be acclimated. He's not going to Arizona. He's not going to go to Montreal for Max Pacioretty. That's crazy. I think that the Devils are a possibility, although he doesn't fit the protocol of the Devils. The Devils are a fast-moving team. That's not Rick Nash. That's absolutely not Rick Nash. Minnesota's interesting to me. They need a kickstart somewhere. We talked about Dallas. Colorado's kind of interesting. They have the space. They're doing really well. If they want to signal to their fan base that they're trying this year and throw a deuce out for Nash, it's possible, I guess. It's quite possible. You can make the argument for Calgary, too. What about this one? What about the Boston Bruins? And again, I've been scanning the Twitterverse, and I don't really see anybody talking about the Boston Bruins and Rick Nash. But what about the Boston Bruins? I think they have the space, right? What do they have? 1-6? It'd be a tight squeeze. They'd have to move somebody or throw somebody down. Who's eating up a lot of, let me see here. Back is Martian, pass back. Man, I don't know if they could. That's a shame. I don't know if they could. They'll have 2.4 million in space at the deadline. Nash is a 7 million player. Even if the Rangers took half by a million or so, maybe. I don't know if there's anybody they can throw down. Let me see. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They have 8 defensemen up right now. So that might be possible. It might put them in a weird position, but it might be possible. It really might be possible. That would be some line, right? If you had Riley Nash, Rick Nash, double down on the Nashness. That would be a Nashy line. Nasty? Get it? Nash, and Bacchus. That would be interesting. That's an interesting third line. Takes a little pressure off of Bergeron and Marchand, right? Krejci and Spooner. DeBrusque. I think Nash to Boston is interesting to me, if they can make it work salary cap wise. Have you heard anything about Mike Green from the Red Wings? Yeah, I mean, he's available. The problem is right now is nobody's making any moves because they're all waiting to see who's going to set the price and who's going to get desperate. Toronto Maple Leafs are a problem when it comes to that. I'll tell you that much, because they got a lot going on over there in Toronto. They obviously have a big need, and they may wind up doing absolutely nothing. Let's wrap this up with the Toronto Maple Leafs, because they've got some news. Van Riemsdyk, obviously a possibility to be moved. Toronto Sun asked Van Riemsdyk about that. What do you think? And, Van Riemsdyk says he's aware of what's going on. The deadline's approaching and he doesn't have a deal. Van Riemsdyk said, quote, "We're all human. Things usually work out the way they are supposed to, but that doesn't mean that they are not moments where you are thinking about it more than other times." Lamoriello's got some decisions to make. Potential unrestricted free agents include Tyler Bozak, Dominic Moore, Leo Komarov, and Roman Polak. They also must decide what to do with Josh Levo. Levo has asked for a trade. This broke over the weekend. Levo signed a 1-year contract with the Leafs November 17th, but hasn't played since December 31st. He asked the Leafs for a trade. The 24-year-old responded to that report early on Monday saying, quote, "I just want to play hockey. I do want to play for the Maple Leafs. That's why I signed for another year. But at the same time, I just want to play hockey." Guy can't even get into the lineup. And when they go to get somebody else into the lineup, it ain't his number, which is why he's getting pretty upset. 12 games, 1 goal, just 2 assists for Josh Levo. Tons of potential in him, though. Tons of potential. Done well for Toronto when he's up. We'll have to wait and see. But Levo's a possibility. What happens to James Van Riemsdyk? I think he finishes out the year with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Look, it's Lou Lamoriello's nature to just flat out wait. Look what he did with Zach Parise. He let him walk and he got nothing in return. Look what he did with Scott Gomez. He kept him through the deadline, let him walk, and got nothing in return. Lou Lamoriello is not afraid to let a player walk for nothing. And Van Riemsdyk helps you get into the playoffs and helps you go deep in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens there. Nick Kiprios of Sportsnet reported Saturday that the Winnipeg Jets might be interested in adding a top 6 forward such as Nash to play left wing on their top line with Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler. What do you think about that? You think Nash fits better in Winnipeg? Winnipeg's rolling right now. We'll have to wait and see. Solid hockey talk show for this Monday. Rick Nash trade watch in full effect. I have a sneaking suspicion that he might be the first domino to fall. I could see him being, that's what's so weird about this. I can see him being the 2:59 p.m. deal on February 26th. And I could see him going tomorrow night, Thursday night. See him just going. Some teams may not want to wait. It depends on what Jeff Gorton's price is. And his price shouldn't be high. If Gordon's reasonable and just wants to move on and start this rebuild already, he would say, give me a 2. You can have him tonight. That's what he would say. Give me a 2, and I will send Rick Nash over. He'll be there with his equipment bag and everything else. Is he going to horse around and see if he can get a 2 and a 3? Is he going to wait for somebody to get super desperate and see if he can sneak out a 1? We'll see. We'll see how the Rangers respond tonight. They are in Dallas. I say they get clobbered at 8:30. They're the NHL Network game tonight, so national feed there for you. If you're out of market, you can watch that game. Let's see how Rick Nash responds. He won't get press. There's no press avail before the game, before 8:30 tonight. But there will certainly be some questions regarding his trade list request after that game. So we'll read a little bit more into that and see if he gets hammered by the media being asked about that trade deal. But I say that on this news, the Rangers go in and completely fall apart against the Dallas Stars tonight. Islanders are going to have to be tough against Nashville. Give me the Islanders at home. Nashville's a better team. I think the Islanders are starting to turn it around. I think, by the way, it'll be interesting to see Philly, the Islanders, and Carolina's response to this, because instead of 5 teams competing for 2 spots, now there's only 4. This is it for the Rangers. They're out of it. They start trading pieces away. They're done. Toronto and Anaheim. I love this game. Give me the Leafs at home. I think the Leafs come out flying. I really, really love the way the Leafs have played the last few games. I think we're starting to see something from them. I think they're going to be really interesting down the stretch. 5-3-2 in their last 10. Give me the Leafs at home. Give me a 4-1, 5-2 game against Anaheim. Isles and Nashville. Give me the Islanders 3-2 over Nashville. Give me Dallas 6-1 against the New York Rangers. Tampa Bay and Edmonton in Edmonton. Give me Tampa 5, Edmonton 2. Eddie says Nashville 4, Islanders 3. Eddie, I will boot you from this channel. I will ban you, my friend. You cannot pick against my Islanders. Not right now. It's a very delicate time. Let me see here. Rangers 5, Dallas 4, Tampa 6, Edmonton 4. You think the Rangers are going to beat Dallas? Oh, man, we got some bets going tonight, Eddie. We got some bets going tonight. Give me Toronto. Give me the Islanders. Give me Dallas. Give me Tampa. Go Bolt, says Austin. All right, good show, everybody. I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. I think we're going to get hot and heavy into the trade rumors. There's a lot going on. Anything breaks, we'll be here chatting about it.